Welcome, everyone.
Oh, come on.
Good to see you all as you come into the room. Would love to see you introduce yourselves in the chat as always. Nice to see where everyone is coming from. We will be getting started in a few minutes. Good morning, good morning. Welcome all, welcome. In store for a wonderful presentation today. Hope you are all looking forward to it. I want to welcome you all to our virtual speaker series for 2025. Today's webinar is titled Healthy Connections, Creating an Engaging and Innovative Workplace, provided by the PA Care Partnership, which is a statewide system of care grant in association with the Office of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, which is better known as OMSAS. So our presenter today is Marty Dombrowski. She is currently the Assistant Director of the Center for Independent Living of South Central PA. This organization supports individuals with disabilities to live and thrive in the community. In her role, she directs programming, writes grants, promotes health and safety awareness, and is the community liaison for the 7-county region. Marty has an undergraduate degree in elementary education and communication. She also has 2 master's degrees, one in mathematics and the other in computer science. Previously, she has taught mathematics and technology classes for over 25 years. She lives in Blair County with her family and enjoys walking, yoga, and connecting with people. And with that, I will turn it over to Marty. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I will share my screen. And get ready to start here. Whoops, I went back. So welcome everybody. I'm so glad you're here. I am Marty Dombrowski from the Center of Independent Living of South Central PA. Right now I'm sitting in Altoona in Blair County. You'll learn a lot about Centers for Independent Living and what I do. Hopefully lots of other good stuff that you can take with you and use in your professional and personal lives. So to start out, Jamal said that I'm a former math and computer science teacher, and I am. So today I thought we could multiply and divide some polynomials. No, just kidding. But I am going to do a little bit of math and read people's minds. So we'll see how this works. A lot of people come to the workplace or come to webinars or come to interactions with other people and think that they know how it's going to go. So right now, I know everybody's sitting in their own space, but raise your hand if you think I can read your mind. So I'm seeing everybody raising their mind. How many people are here? Everybody's raising their hand. Or not raising their hand. They think I can't read your mind, but let's try. So I challenge you all right now to please think of a number between 2 and 9. Okay, everybody has their number? Please multiply that number by 9. And now just think about the answer to that multiplication equation. It should be a 2-digit number. So now I'd like you to take that answer and add those 2 digits together. Everybody has that? And now subtract 5. And then the answer to all that math, that's the only number I want you to think of. So just to recap, you thought of a number between 2 and 9, you multiplied it by 9, you took the answer to that multiplication, it was a 2-digit number, you added those 2 digits together, you got it, that sum, and then you subtracted 5. All right, so now I'm going to challenge you to, we're going to make a pattern with the alphabet. So if A is 1 and B is 2 and C is 3, please think about what letter would go with the answer to all that math you just did. But please follow my pattern. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. Okay, so now think of whatever letter you have in your mind. Think of a European country that begins with that letter. Now take the last letter of that European country and think of an animal that begins with that letter. And now think of the last letter of that animal and think of a color that begins with that letter. Now, I just want to tell everybody there are no orange kangaroos in Denmark. I can't see everybody's faces, but I can see a couple faces, and I can tell that I might have been able to read people's minds. So, and there are no aqua colored koala bears either in Denmark, if that's what you were thinking as well. So, that's kind of what I'm bringing to the table today, to kind of shake up the idea that we all know what other people are thinking, because we really don't. And so we have to kind of respect and validate what they're bringing with them to the table without our pre decisions. So our objectives for today are to identify and address the unconscious biases that we all have, and that we can try to ensure fair and respectful interactions with the people that we come in contact with. We want to learn to communicate clearly and professionally in all the situations we can, personal and professional. We want to support and connect with people of all different backgrounds. We want to learn how to build a stronger, more collaborative workplace community based on people's initiative, skills, and performances. We want to elevate our service to others, and we want to do that in an effort to create powerful opportunities to deepen the impact that you have on others. And then finally, we want to understand how to build stronger community and why this is so important. So, who am I and why am I standing up here? Well, I'm actually sitting, but I want to tell you a little bit about where I work, and for whom I work for. I work at the Center for Independent Living of South Central Pennsylvania, and we are everywhere. The story starts in Washington, D.C. The Federal Health and Human Service Office has a smaller office called ACL, the Administration of Community Living, and that office oversees two groups that serve people in every county and every state and territory in the United States. The first is not a secret. The first everybody's heard of. That's the Area Agency on Aging. As Americans age, we celebrate. We want people as they age to live in their communities and make their own decisions for as long as they're healthy and safe. The second group that kind of is a big secret are the Centers for Independent Living. We are everywhere, in every state and territory and every county. And we represent people of any age with any disability. So my counties are the rural blue ones down at the bottom, that the seven, Indiana, Cambria, Somerset, Blair, Bedford, Huntington, and Fulton. But you'll notice that all 67 counties have a Center for Independent Living, sometimes better known as a CIL. So anything you hear me say today applies to your county, to your people. So what do we do? So we promote an independent living philosophy. And that philosophy is a worldwide movement of individuals with disabilities working for equal opportunities, self determination, and self respect. It comes from a principle that people with disabilities are entitled to the same civil rights, options, and control over choices in their own lives as people without disabilities. That sounds kind of, well, that just makes sense. That's how it should be, but it wasn't always that way. Um, so what do we do? We provide for people five core services, all centers for independent living. The first thing we do is independent skills training. We have people that work for us called independent living skills specialists, and they meet with people one on one, help them set goals, and then help them figure out how to meet the goals. We're person centered, so people make their own choices. People say what they want about themselves. If we had t shirts, it would say, "There's no decision about me without me." And the independent living skills training helps people realize those goals. The second thing that we do, all centers for independent living, teach advocacy. We teach people how to find their voices and to whom they can direct questions and responses. And if a systemic change needs to be made, how to do that in a respectful and meaningful way. We support peer support. For us, that means that 51% of the people that work here and 51% on our board of directors have to be people with disabilities. It might not be the same disability that somebody else has, but it means that we know what it's like to have to navigate a situation or a system or a process, and how to ask for help and how to receive help if assistance is needed. We do information and referral. So if the phone rings, we answer it, tell people how to find the information, and every county does things a little bit differently. So part of my job as a community liaison is to figure out where certain pots of money are, where certain help is in certain counties, and how to access that help. We do two kinds of transition. The first is youth to adult. So when a student is moving from education to community living, we help figure out what needs to be in place. When a child is in school, things are figured out for them. But as soon as they receive that diploma or they leave the school setting, whole series of systems need to come into place so that the person gets what they need to be successful in the community. We talk about living in the community, but we really, really support thriving in the community, because it's not just okay to live and get by. We want people to thrive and enjoy life when they're in the community. And then we do something called nursing home transition. So that if somebody is in a nursing home or a long-term care facility and they don't need to be there for their health or safety, we're the people that help transition them back to the community. The eligibility for our programs is not based on income. It's not based on insurance. It's not based, we don't ask questions about medical diagnosis. People declare that they have a significant disability, and then we're able to step in to help. So when we kind of got started, disability was defined as, a lot of times for a lot of people, people that use wheelchairs, people that might have low vision or be blind, people that hard of hearing or deaf. But in 2025, there's a lot of invisible disabilities. And a Center for Independent Living is able to step in and help people with visible and invisible disabilities, and there's no charge for our services. So before I start the video, this is a really neat TED Talk about having an advantage in life, and I'll let the video speak for itself.
I'm used to thinking of the TED audience as a wonderful collection of some of the most effective, intelligent, intellectual, savvy, worldly, and innovative people in the world, and I think that's true. However, I also have reason to believe that many, if not most of you, are actually tying your shoes incorrectly. Now, I know that seems ludicrous. I know that seems ludicrous, and believe me, I lived the same sad life until about 3 years ago. And what happened to me was I bought what was for me a very expensive pair of shoes, but those shoes came with round nylon laces, and I couldn't keep them tied. So I went back to the store and said to the owner, I love the shoes, but I hate the laces. He took a look and said, oh, you're tying them wrong. Now, up until that moment, I would have thought that by age 50, one of the life skills that I had really nailed was tying my shoes. But not so. Let me demonstrate. This is the way that most of us were taught to tie our shoes. Now, as it turns out, thank you. Wait, there's more. As it turns out, there's a strong form and a weak form of this knot. And we were taught to tie the weak form. And here's how to tell. If you pull the strands at the base of the knot, you can see that the bow will orient itself down the long axis of the shoe. That's the weak form of the knot. But not to worry. If we start over and simply go the other direction around the bow, we get this, the strong form of the knot. And if you pull the cords under the knot, you will see that the bow orients itself along the transverse axis of the shoe. This is a stronger knot. It will come untied less often. It will let you down less, and not only that, it looks better. We're going to do this one more time. Start as usual. Go the other way around the loop. This is a little hard for children, but I think you can handle it. Pull the knot. There it is, the strong form of the shoe knot. Now, in keeping with today's theme, I'd like to point out, and something you already know, that sometimes a small advantage someplace in life can yield tremendous results someplace else. Live long and prosper.
Okay. Awesome. So I truly believe that to the core of my being, that some small advantage in life can yield a huge impact later. Um, and I want to be that small advantage. I want to give somebody that chance, that advantage. So that's kind of what today's presentation's about, how to give that advantage, how to be that person, how to be the catalyst for that change. So um, there are a lot of there's a lot of diversity and a lot of groups that people think about when they think about diversity. And I my background being with in the disability world is going to be disability. So that's where I'm coming from today. But I thought this picture really shows a lot of it makes sense to me about equality and equity. We don't need to think about giving everybody the exact same thing because not every single person needs the exact same thing. We serve a woman recently who was born without legs, and later in life, she had a was in a car accident and lost an arm. And she called because her insurance company wanted to give her a manual wheelchair because that's what they provided for people without legs. It wouldn't have done her much good. She tried to explain that, but on the equity side, that's the wheelchair people without legs received. She definitely needed the power chair for obvious reasons. And that was about equity. So I thought this picture was a good way to explain the difference in what I'm here to talk about today. So in order in order to do all of that, in order to be the advantage, to give the advantage, in order to um, be instrumental and impactful in our workplace, we start with identifying and understanding our own values and attitudes. Because if you know what your own values and attitudes are, then you're able to direct that impact that you have on other people. Your values and attitudes direct and influence everything about you, your interactions, how you communicate, how you make decisions, all of your relationships, both in the workplace and at home, all the collaborations that you do. Um, it all starts with your attitudes and values. And a lot of times when I talk to people, they say, of course, I know what my values and attitudes are. But do you really? Have you ever sat down and really thought about and named them and thought about it? Some of it's easy because there are laws. Some people have a deep faith and are deeply connected to a church or a place of worship, and so they kind of have values and attitudes because of their membership with that with other groups. But do you really know what yours are? Um, and that's again, that's important because your values act as a lens with how you perceive and engage in the world around you and how other people experience you. So, what do we know about human values? There's not a whole lot of research, but there is some. And the research that we have, we know research has to be valid and reliable if you're taking a stats course. And so we know that this is valid and reliable research. But we know that the total number of values that a person possesses is actually very small. It's not a long laundry list. It's a pretty small list. And then the second thing up on this slide is the MI, the main idea. Values are universal. So humans across the globe pretty much have the same values. What people think is good or perceive as good and what people perceive or think as bad pretty much is the same in name a country. And to all of us sitting in the United States. Um, the origin of human values can be traced to the culture, our society, our institutions, and our organizations, um, but also our individual personality and the life experiences that we've all had. Also, they contribute to what our values are, our unique and personal values. And that the fourth thing that we know about human values is that the consequences of our values show up in all behavior that's worth investigating and understanding. So, how do we know about values? The two, as far back as Aristotle, and as recently as Dr. Milton Rokesh at the University of Washington, he actually has these are the two people we turn to understand human values. So Aristotle, I was able to identify two kinds of values, and then Dr. Rokesh validated that. Um, Aristotle's terminal values are Rokesh's life values, and Aristotle's instrumental values are actually Rokesh's operational values. And what does all that mean? That means that we'll start with the life values. The life values are cognitive and rational. We can name them. We can say what they are. We can say what they're not. We know what they are. We can think about them. It's a very rational um, thing, but more importantly, we can act on them. Things we can act on. We feel emotional about life values, and that we know that if certain life values are triggered, we will react to them. So maybe you feel very strongly about maybe one of your values is fairness, and when somebody jumps in the grocery line and the 5 items or less and has a cart full of groceries, if that's your value and that's what triggers you, you're going to have a reaction. How you react is up to you, but it's going to trigger certain feelings. The operational values that and the instrumental values that Aristotle identified are actually our behaviors. That's what we do with those values. So this is a list pretty much of all the attitudes and values in the world. You can add some more at the bottom. If you notice the last thing says write your own, you can write your own because maybe this isn't the whole list for you. But for most humans, this is it. And if we were in person, I would ask everybody to pick out which one the top three for you. So I'm going to give everybody a minute just to look at that list and to pick out the top three. It's a good list. Um, Maybe what I should ask people to do as well is pick out the three that really don't mean anything to them, that don't elicit really any kind of reaction. It's not really important, or you might think it's important, but not the most important thing in your life. So the next time you're driving or the next time you have a quiet moment, um, name, challenge yourself to name your top five, name your top 10, understand what your values and attitudes are, and be able to name them. So once we know our attitudes and values and know where we're coming from, then we can think about biases. So um, Rokesh came up with three kinds of biases. The first one is affinity bias, and that's an unconscious tendency to prefer people who are similar to us. So recently, I did this training, and there were about 60 people in the room. Of those 60 people, 20 were men. And when I stopped at this point of in the presentation, we noticed where everybody was sitting. So all of the men were sitting together. All of the younger women were sitting together. And all of the, I would say, women with gray hair were sitting together. The older women were sitting together, except if they knew each other. So, what does this have to do with creating an innovative workplace? That means when people come to us in our workplace or in any part of our life, but especially in our workplace, people that appear to be like us or that you can find a common thread with. Sometimes it's appearance, sometimes it's even tone of voice. But if we can have that connection, we probably prefer to work with those people. The next kind of bias is called attribution bias. And that's a tendency to think that if something good happens to somebody, it's just dumb luck. But if something bad happens, it's because of lack of skill or competency. Kind of like somebody in your office has a promotion and you're kind of thinking, oh, they're friends with the boss, or their sister lives next door to the boss's sister. It's just dumb luck. They were here longer than I was. They bring cupcakes that for everybody's birthday. That's why they got promoted, not because they've done a better job or have a better skill or have a better competency when it comes to the work. It's just dumb luck. If something bad happens to us, or to other people, we think, oh, it's because they don't have that skill. They're not competent. That's why they lost the job. That's why they lost the account. That's why that person that they're serving is upset and is angry and wants to, have a complaint. It's a lack of skill. They didn't do it right. And then there's likability bias. So that highlights how success and likability correlates between two different groups of people. And my example for this one is leadership between men and women. So oftentimes, if a leader um, leads with strong decisions, quick decisions, firm decisions, and if that leader is a man, that's he is seen as very successful and as a very strong and good leader. Sometimes when those same kind of characteristics are played out, but the human is a woman, it's she's seen as not as strong as a leader. So kind of interesting to understand those. So now my question is, can you work at McDonald's if you're a vegan? So can you work at a place if you don't agree with what the organization's values are? And my answer is yes. Yes, you can. Because between the hours of 8 and 4 or 9 and 5 or whatever the hours are, your values, you can tuck away your values and your attitudes. It doesn't mean you have to forget about them and ignore them. But between 9 and 5, your values are the values of the workplace. So, how does that work? Especially if you're in direct conflict with something or someone. So, in our work, we need to be aware that some of our personal values might be at odds with the values that we're required to hold with our work. Sometimes that's awkward and very uncomfortable. Recently, we had a grant through it was through the Pennsylvania Department of Health and Sexuality Education. And yes, I had to go out and teach sexuality education, 42 sessions in 7 counties. Every session had 6 sessions. I'm not comfortable talking about sex to people with all kinds of disabilities and not disabilities, but that was my job. That was my job. And so you might have to tuck things away between the hours that you're working. And that's okay, especially if the person you're serving is kind of has a behavior or a lifestyle or is something against your personal values. Because if you're the safe person and that person asks you a question or asks you for help and your personal biases show through, whether it's on your face or words that you say or your tone of voice or even your body language, and that person perceives that you don't approve or that you don't like them, that person might not ever ask another person for help. And that is sad and dangerous and unhealthy. You might have been the safe person. You might have been the person to be able to give that person some peace of mind or an answer. Previous experiences in our private and working lives and the way that we've been socialized and educated, together with the people around us, can be positive or negative influences on what we think and do. So think about the people that you surround yourself with. Think about the messages that they're sending to people, and if you agree or disagree and want to be associated with those messages. Through education and trainings like this one, we're able to become aware of the impact of our actions. We can identify and address our prejudices and assimilate the values of our profession. So keep learning, keep taking trainings, keep being part of the change, because that's the only way that for some people to be exposed. A few slides down the presentation here, you're going to hear about get outside your world and learn about other people's worlds. And then when you take on the post that you have in your workplace, you're agreeing to hold and apply the values of the profession and or the organization. And you have a contractual obligation to work with those values and those attitudes. So mine are kind of not easy, but I'm governed by the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. It's a federal law, together with the Civil Rights Act of 1964. There it is. So if you're not sure about how you should be acting or what the values of your workplace are, ask. So when we think about diversity, most commonly people think about race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, age, abilities and disabilities, people's cultural backgrounds, socioeconomic status, and religious and spiritual beliefs. But there are more. So there's veteran status, people's language, people's health status, housing status, geographical location. My husband's from Philadelphia. I was born and raised in Altoona. We both speak English. I speak it with a central Pennsylvania. If you don't know by now, you've heard it for the last half hour. Um, he has his. He has his. Um, People may or may not have criminal records. Their appearance, their mannerisms, their voice all play into the diversity considerations. And then, of course, we all know this political. So, what happens? Somebody comes in to your workplace or people that you're working with, and you want to make sure that you do the best job you can. Think about these three key elements. The first one is to know your organization's definition of service. Maybe it's a federal law like mine is. Maybe it's more exact depending on what the your organization's service is. If you're in a leadership position, I challenge you to ask yourself and the other leaders, does everybody in my organization know what the definition of service, our definition of service is? And where is it written down? It should be written down somewhere. It should be, everybody should have access to it. It shouldn't be once a year at the board meeting when we hand out the paper that says everybody in every capacity at that organization should know what the definition is. Everybody at your organization should have a clear understanding of what our word for the people that we serve as consumers, but the client, the customer, have a clear understanding of what they need. And then this part sometimes is tricky, but this is the most important part, to find a human connection and develop that relationship, human to human. So, ways that you can be inclusive in your organization. Again, make sure you know the goals and the vision of the organization and actively engage in the effort. Don't show up for that meeting, that one staff meeting when we go over it, and then take that pack of papers or that PowerPoint or whatever it is and file it away and don't look at it again until next year at the meeting. Actively know what the message is that you're supposed to be sharing. Become culturally competent. Know what's going on in the cultures and in the small communities around you. Don't stay in your bubble. Venture out. Treat people in a way they want to be treated. That's in there because a lot of times we hear that an example of this is people's pronouns. People want to be, or people's names. People's names might be one thing officially, but they choose to be called something else. And people in the workplace, a lot of organizations say, I'm sorry, that's not your name. I'm going to call you this. It's not up to me to decide what somebody's name is or somebody's pronouns. It's up to them. Drive positive change. Don't be afraid to speak out. If something needs to be changed, it doesn't have to be confrontational. It can be done with respect and it can be done human to human, but be the change. And then welcome ideas that are different from your own. A lot of times people are kind of stuck on their own ideas and they won't listen to other people. It doesn't mean you have to embrace it and join another church or join another political group or join anything. It just means you have to listen and think outside your box, your bubble. So, how do you do this? So these are the real life takeaways. This is what you can pack with you and take with you. The first one is active listening. So when you're talking to somebody, really, really listen to the person. Often, I know we have how many things is on everybody's to-do list today. As soon as I get out of work, I have to make sure I pick up the soccer socks because the game starts, and I have to make sure dinner's in the crock pot and the dishwashers, or even at work, I have to make sure this gets done because this needs done by everybody's on a timeline. But when that person, that consumer, customer, patient, whoever you're interacting with, it's their time and they deserve 100% of you during that time. So phones are away, computer screens are away. What even thinking, okay, she's going to say this, back to the mind reading. I guess she's going to say this, then I'm going to say this, and she's going to say this. Just listen to the person. Be attentive. Be a good communicator. Make sure that the person understands what you're saying. So at the end, you might say, do you have any questions? Yes, that takes extra time, but it's really important. Do other people understand what you're trying to communicate? And if you don't understand what they're saying or what they're trying to say, ask questions. Be confident. Be confident that you can help the person. Sometimes I know we get huge asks that are way outside our scope of work. I can be confident that I don't know something. When we were doing the healthy relationship and sexuality education, there were lots of questions that I didn't know. I wasn't confident that I know everything, but I was confident that I knew that I could help that person find the answer. So my confidence was about being able to admit, I don't know, but I can help you figure it out. Be a decision maker. If somebody needs help, help them. If you can help them, tell them you can't help them so that they can look other places. Be empathetic, but not sympathetic. In the disability world, don't feel sorry for me because I have a disability. Be empathetic. You can try to put yourself in my shoes. You can try to feel like I feel, but don't feel bad for me. Having a disability is just part of the human condition. It's part of the independent living movement. Be flexible. Not everybody's going to do the things exactly how you're going to do them. If everybody is supposed to turn right at the end of the hall, you know, in the course of a day, one person at least will turn left. And you're going to have to go to plan B and figure out. So be flexible and know that from the beginning. Be positive. People might ask you really hard problems. Somebody recently, this is kind of funny, called and referred a person because they have a disability. They wanted mulching done, and they wanted mulching done because they have a disability. And they wanted to know who is offering mulching, free mulching and landscaping for people with disabilities. And the answer is right now, nobody. Nobody is in that particular county. Um, so I'm positive. I'm not hopeless. I'm not, even if I have to tell somebody it's not happening just now, right before this webinar started, somebody called and asked about sign language. And our sign language teacher just retired. So we don't have sign language classes right now, but we can take your name and phone number so that when we do have sign language classes again, we'll be glad to reach out to you and we'll update you along the way in our efforts to find a new teacher. Problem solve. And then encourage the person with the problem to be part of the solving process and be a team player. Often people are think they have to do everything themselves, and it's sometimes easier to ask somebody in your workplace, "Hey, how did you handle this?" It's not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're a team player. Make sure that when you're meeting people, your first impression is impactful. So be thoughtful. Show good manners. It's okay to welcome people, to be friendly, to use the person's name. To use the person's name. When I was in the classroom, my when I was teaching technology, all of the computers were out around the perimeter of the room. So I was literally each class talking to the back of 25 children's heads. And so that really bothered me. So what I would do is make sure that I was at my classroom door. So as each child came in, I said the child's name. Hello, I'm glad to see you. I'm glad that you're here today, and use their name. And then use their name once during the course of that class. We don't hear our names enough. And there's great power in using somebody's name. And that human connection that I talked about earlier, that's the first step, using somebody's name. Use a pleasant tone of voice. If your voice is too low for a lot of people, especially people with trauma, that might put them at edge. If your voice is too high, it sometimes doesn't seem sincere. So some people have to kind of practice that. Always polite and courteous manners, and then genuine and thoughtful conversations. A lot of times in the course of our work, we have to ask the same questions, fill out the same forms, get the same intake, and we kind of know, okay, this is going to be the answer, this is going to be the answer. But if you can give some genuine and thoughtful connection to that other human, that will be awesome for a great impression. And for the course of the work moving forward, your nonverbal communication is just as important. Smiling, 55% of what we perceive from other people has to do with everything except words. So, our appearance, our eye contact, smiling at other people, how we've greeted other people, all that is more than half of how we're perceiving and how we're perceived. Um, Make sure that you honor people's personal space, especially if you're working with people that might be outside your culture. Your posture should look interested, ready to work, lean forward toward the person, nod, show some indication that you're listening to the person, and then observe the person's reaction so that you're able to give a reaction. We kind of talked about this, our tone of voice. If somebody's not speaking the same language, if their first language is not our first language, I know I do. I need to slow down. Talking louder doesn't help, but the pace does. Talk more slowly and carefully. Do's and don'ts. These are words not to say no. Instead of just saying no, you can say things like, I have a little cheat sheet here. You can say things like, I'll find out. What I can do is this. I, I might not be able to do this, but I could do this instead. You don't say that's not my job. You could say to yourself, let me find the right person. Sometimes people in a workplace, somebody's not satisfied, so the employee says, you're right, that is bad, we shouldn't be doing that, that's really bad. In their effort to appease the customer, they kind of throw their organization under the bus. They might think that, they might think that's not a great way to do it. But back to the question about being vegan and working at McDonald's, you might think that, but try to be supportive of your organization. We don't tell people to calm down. That puts us in a position of we're in power and we're telling them what to do. They might have a right to be. They do have a right to be upset. Um, I'm busy right now. That doesn't work. That's not a good way to put it. You might want to say instead, Give me 1 minute, please. I'll get right back to you. Call me back. How about you call them back? You call them back. That's not my fault. That we don't even have to go over that one, why that one's not a good idea. And you want it by when? Instead, you can say, you know what, it's going to take me some time to figure this out, but I will get back to you by the end of the week, and then get back to the person by the end of the week. So what if you do all that good stuff? What if you do it all and then somebody is not satisfied? And they come in and they're not happy with you, you're not meeting, you've tried everything, you've remembered everything on all these slides and you've done it, but it's just not working. So listen to the other person. Let the person explain why they're upset or where the conflict is. Express that you are sorry that this is happening. You don't have to apologize for what happened, because maybe I can't apologize that there's nobody mulching people's yards. That's not my fault. But I can feel sorry that, yes, there are some things that we might want to happen that the services just aren't available. Never argue or interrupt the person. Let them have their say. Don't lose your self-control when you're at work. It's not a good look for you or for the organization. Point out facts. So be willing and ready to write down what the person's telling you. It will validate for them that what they're saying is important and that you're listening. And then you have a record of what happened. You can admit the problem if there is a problem, but let the person, the consumer, be part of the solution. Follow up. Don't back people into a corner. That just puts everybody on edge, and everybody's barriers come up, and do not question the customer's correctness. Try to relate to the person human to human. There's something about that other person. There's some value that they have that you have. And that's the challenge, to find that and connect with that person. So the takeaways for today are to be aware of our unconscious biases and how they can affect your interactions with others. And that all has to do with the challenge that I offered everybody about knowing your values and attitudes and being able to say what they are and say what you believe in. Actively practice all those skills we've just discussed. That will give visibility to people that you serve. And then lastly, consider the first follower challenge in order to be part of the movement. And the movement that I'm suggesting is a movement where we build a stronger community by relating to each other human to human. Yes, we can get our jobs done. We all have jobs. We all have services. We all have limitations. But try to be a good leader and be part of this movement. And here is that video.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a movement happen start to finish in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons. First, of course, a leader needs the guts to stand alone and look ridiculous. But what he's doing is so simple, it's almost instructional. This is key. You must be easy to follow. Now here comes the first follower with a crucial role. He publicly shows everyone else how to follow. Notice how the leader embraces him as an equal. So it's not about the leader anymore. It's about them, plural. Notice how he's calling to his friends to join in. See, it takes guts to be a first follower. You stand out and you brave ridicule yourself. Being a first follower is an underappreciated form of leadership. The first follower transforms a lone nut into a leader. If the leader is the flint, the first follower is the spark that really makes the fire. Now here's the second follower. This is a turning point. It's proof the first has done well. Now it's not a lone nut and it's not two nuts. 3 is a crowd and a crowd is news. A movement must be public. Make sure outsiders see more than just the leader. Everyone needs to see the followers, because new followers emulate followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, then 3 more immediately. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point, and now we have a movement. As more people jump in, it's no longer risky. If they were on the fence before, there's no reason not to join in now. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, and they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. And over the next minute, you'll see the rest who prefer to stay part of the crowd, because eventually they'd be ridiculed for not joining. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how a movement is made. So let's recap what we've learned. If you are a version of the shirtless dancing guy, all alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals, making everything clearly about the movement, not you. Be public, be easy to follow. But the biggest lesson here, did you catch it? Leadership is overglorified. Yes, it started with the shirtless guy, and he'll get all the credit, but you saw what really happened. It was the first follower that transformed a lone nut into a leader. There's no movement without the first follower. See, we're told that we all need to be leaders, but that would be really ineffective. The best way to make a movement, if you really care, is to courageously follow and show others how to follow. When you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first person to stand up and join in.
I love that.
If you've learned a lot about leadership and making a movement, then let's watch a
That's my work. I'll stop the share. So thank you all so much for listening to this presentation. Hopefully you had a lot of good stuff to put in your toolkit and take with you. If anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Thank you, Marty, for a wonderful presentation. As always, if you have any questions, please place them in the Q&A area at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Mark is posting directions for the evaluation in the chat. If you fill out the evaluation, you should be directed to a link where you can download your certificate of attendance and customize that with your name. And then you'll be able to print it out or save it as you need it. Again, we want to thank Marty for the presentation. Yes, the presentation has been recorded, and you should receive an email at the end of not the end of the presentation, but once the presentation is complete, downloaded, and all of those things, we can send you out the information and any other things that are connected to resources that are connected to the presentation will be in that email also.
The link to the last video, the first follower.
Yeah.
Marty and I were kind of talking about that beforehand, and I use that in some of my trainings as well. And there is, we acknowledge that one line. It's like leadership is overrated. I disagree. I think leadership comes from any chair, and that belief that we all can find those people that can stand with us and by us and support us, and that idea that spark and the flint and the fire. We need those people. And I think, Marty, your presentation really synthesized that very well in this idea that we have to listen. We have to really be there with people and be present.
I 100% agree. And once we get started and start practicing that, it becomes actually kind of easy.
Absolutely.
We have another question that came through from Jennifer, and she would like to know, do you equate definition of service with mission?
I do, actually. I do. I think that where we land um, is kind of where we land employment wise, professionally. It is kind of a calling. Um, I think people really have to enjoy their work. I think that's kind of a fundamental right. If you hate your job and hate going to someplace, you're just going to have money to pay the electric bill and to feed your family. You're kind of cheating yourself out of so much. If you enjoy what you're doing, not everybody can love every single thing about their job. You can't see
Mhm.
this, but on my desk, right off of the camera, is a giant pile of papers that need to be gone through. I'm not looking forward to that, but it's there. But if you're not enjoying the biggest piece of pie of your job, you're cheating yourself.
I agree. It's it's interesting. It's like there are people who enjoy working with others, and there are some people who don't. And you see it in stores and things with that all the time, where you can tell like the cashier isn't happy with their job, right? Um, and it is. I think it's a human right. You should be happy with your job. Your place of employment should be working to help you to be happy with what it is that you do also. So I do think service, when it comes to service and mission, I think if you can find a way to connect those in your work, it's almost like the best thing to do. Um, find something that
I
you
agree.
love and do it. It's a beautiful way to think about it. So, Mari, I was wondering, how does your center define independent living, and what does that look like in practice for the people you serve?
Independent living is people making decisions about themselves for themselves. Um, every human needs other humans. Other
Mm.
every human need we all need each other, and we're all in
Mhm.
this together. But when it comes to Marty, regardless of her abilities or disabilities, should be able to make some decisions, especially fundamental decisions about herself. Um, the other family members often have an idea of what would be best. Um, it's tricky. It's tricky, but independent living is I make my decisions about me. Sometimes they're good decisions and they're awesome and they lead to amazing opportunities. Sometimes they're really bad decisions, but even
Mhm.
from those bad decisions, I grow and I learn. And as long as I grow and learn and take what I've learned and take that growth and are able to apply it to new situations, it's a success.
Mhm. Yeah, you hear the quote that experience can be a harsh teacher, but I
Yeah.
also feel that experience can be a very effective teacher. Also,
Yeah. Everybody has to struggle a little bit.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah. And I think it's also interesting, and Marty, going back to your presentation, really tying into that, is looking at that idea of, connection I'm hearing is so important. And when we hear things that don't align with us, they hit our values, we get that reaction, and we may hold that bias or something along that line. Like that perspective on how do we reset, how do we hold that lightly in the moment, and from a leader perspective, when there is that lack of clarity, that lack of understanding, how do we bring that understanding and clarity, even if it's something that we disagree with and we're not happy about the decision, but we can
Hmm.
actually lessen some of that trauma and some of that other things by being very true and honest as to what's
Mhm.
happening in the moment.
Yeah. True and honest and know and be ready and willing to admit that I might need a moment.
Mhm.
I might need to step outside for myself. Um, and that's okay. That's honesty. That's okay. Um, I taught for a long time for the beginning of my career in Philadelphia, and I learned something very early on that whatever parent came to, no matter how irate or upset anybody was, the first thing I said, and I still do this for people that come at me. So if anybody wants to come at me, the first thing I say is thank you. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. It kind of sets the stage. I really do appreciate, and I probably had a really, really good reason for doing what I did or saying what I said at the time. And I appreciate the person bringing it to my attention so that I can explain myself and they can explain themselves so that we can reach some kind of point of understanding.
Yeah.
Great. That's a great way to handle those kind of things. Because it is, perspective is, independent of each individual, right?
Hmm.
So if in a moment my perspective was this, and this is the way that I act, said, or behaved in a way um, that wasn't pleasing to you, this is my reasoning behind that. I wonder what your reason is for responding that way, because at the time I
That's a
didn't
good point.
think that. Right. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, I
It's a
like
great
that.
way to look at it. All right. Do we have any more questions for Marty?
Or if there's any questions for anybody that wants to be brought in and just ask it verbally, you can also do that as well. And I'm also amazed with your I'll call it your witchcraftery of math words.
Did it work? Did I
It,
read your mind?
You got me.
I got the Denmark kangaroo orange, and I'm
All
just
right.
like,
Yeah.
I would also often tell kids to go home and bet their parents $5 that they couldn't read their minds and then do it. And then they had to give me half the money. But then talk about irate parents showing up.
and ask for more.
Yeah.
That's fun.
It's a good trick. If anybody wants to ask a question about how I did that, it's a neat little thing. Any multiple of 9 adds the 2 digits add up to 9.
Okay. Nice.
And I don't know why that happens. So for that one, I'd have to say, I'll get back to you on that because I don't have an answer, but it always works.
Nice. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming through. So we want to thank you again, Marty, for your presentation. It's very eye-opening and enlightening. Want to let everyone know to keep an eye out in your email for our next upcoming webinar, which will be substance use as a result of trauma, starting at noon Eastern on Wednesday, August 6th. You can register here. I'll put that in the chat for you. And we hope to see you all there. Thank you again, Marty. I want everyone to have a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you on August 6th.
All right.
Thank you so much. Have a
Thank
good
you,
day,
Marty.
everyone.
Thank you so much for your time and your attention. A beautiful and enlightening presentation.
This was a great opportunity and I appreciate it. Thanks.
All
Thank
right.
you.